Let's all go to the
mall.
Let's all go to the
mall.
Let's all go to the
mall
to get ourselves a
horror.
Future City Mall stood on a platform 16 steps high, like the Parthenon, but without any of its majesty or craftsmanship, obviously. 16 steps, 4 sets of 4, staggered by semi-wide landings. The youngsters sweeping past Shonda were probably oblivious to how many steps there were.
Nkpor gathered the small markets. She gathered them all. Bologu, yam markets, books and stationery markets, Obo tomato, aluminium markets, Ezenifite, Osokudo, plywood and carpenters markets. She gathered them all.
I was so amazed by your story. Like, how does one even come up with, seeing markets as, people or living organisms? Like, where did that idea come from?
I think they've all, like here where I grew in Onitsha, where I grew up, it's always been this thing because they have these names that are also very human names already. Very human, ancient names. It's always felt like when you go to those markets, it's always felt like it's living. And there's always so many people, and it just feels like each of the person there is just acting as a limb or just a part of like a bigger being. And I did kind of struggle at first with the theme because ShopRite Mall is the first and only mall in my state. It hasn't been, as I've visited other malls in other states and maybe in other countries as well, but like where I've lived growing up, it was just markets. Yeah, we didn't really have like a mall culture. But I could just mix the two. Something that is new and something that has always been there, and just found a way to just blend the two into. So I was saying that one of the things I really liked about your story was the fact that you went with like an elderly character as the main protagonist. It's not really something you see very often in stories. People always go for like, oh, a young person or a teenager. And I just really I really thought it was quite refreshing.
When I first saw the submissions call for this book, I knew exactly what, Michael and Jennifer were getting at. Like, American shopping malls are kind of creepy. So I got why like a shopping mall would be a great place to set like a horror story. But coming from Bangladesh, shopping malls aren't very scary here. And especially for a young person like me, there's so many people here. Like, the only person I knew would be scared alone in a mall would be my mom. So that's why I chose her. And so she doesn't really go out on her own. She only goes out if my dad is with her, if like I'm with her. And like Shonda, she also has like a knee problem. So a lot of places, just climbing stairs are very difficult for her. And, I think it's fear of, having to sort of climb stairs and come downstairs that really, stops her from going outside on her own. And so because like I used her as inspiration, I also, like, from the get-go, I knew that, like, nothing like really bad could happen to her. I couldn't go full horror on it.
I don't think your mom is the only one who's really scared of like more like who would be. I am too, because I didn't. Even when I was in the US recently, I went to this really large mall. I have never been in a mall that size before. It got very, very overwhelming, and I had to go find somewhere to sit. Again, I think again, I think maybe someone who grew up going to malls frequently would would be okay in a way, but I didn't. I grew up going to markets, and I feel like maybe if you chose someone who grew up going malls into a market, they too might be overwhelmed as well.
I want to ask you a question about the role of sort of urbanization in your story, because so in America, like shopping malls are sort of this relic in the past, but as you said, where you're from, that may not be the case. Like there aren't any there aren't very many shopping malls as yet, but there may be, and that's like an integral part of your story as well, that the urban shopping mall is kind of taking over. So I don't know, I was wondering, like, oh, does he work in like the development sector or something? Like, how, like, where did you like pull this knowledge from while you were creating this story?
I think it was just something I just got to see as like the mall, when the first mall, the one in Onitsha, when it got built. And it's a branch of malls because they are like they've been coming up in almost every state. So like as at this point, almost every state has a ShopRite mall. Yeah, I think just like witnessing what's going on, a mall comes up, and sometimes I think before Onitsha Mall was even built, that's the area, the land where it was built. There are like traders there, people who sold small roadside traders and stuff. But then the mall came. Obviously, they had to remove those people had to leave. Yeah, just witnessing that in real time and how it really affects every person. Even people who can't even afford to even go buy stuff in malls would have to go because they need to get this particular item, and that's the only place it's being sold.
One of the things that struck me is that, like, in both our stories, the shopping mall is kind of, an emblem of where the country or the city is, economically and developmentally. And we actually both have a very similar sentence in where a character is sort of kind of reflecting on all that they've sort of weathered in their life, and how, like, this shopping mall at this point of time is just this it's just one thing that pops up in the history of a city and a country, which I thought like was very interesting.